Hello everyone, welcome back to Andy's Catholic Book Reviews. I will be starting a series reading from Divine Intimacy. So here is meditation number 331 for October 8th. Called Sanctification in the Apostolate. So how it's laid out is there's an act of the presence of God, and then there's a meditation, and then there's a colloquy. So and then that's it for each day. So let's get started with the meditation. I have lost my page. Feels like they're stuck together. Here we are. The act of the presence of God reads thus: Give me light, O God, that I may recognize the graces you have prepared for me to lead me to sanctity. Help me to correspond with them. Meditation number 1. It is the saints who are the most efficient apostles. Must we then be saints before devoting ourselves to the apostolate? Theoretically, this is the ideal, but in practice it is impossible. To think that the formative years, those spent in the seminary or novitiate, for example, suffice to make us saints is a misconception. It is equally wrong to exempt ourselves from apostolic work when charity or our duty imposes it on us, under the pretext that we have not yet arrived at sanctity. We must therefore conclude that when the period allotted exclusively to preparation is over, we must combine our own personal efforts towards sanctity with the exercise of the active apostolate. In other words, apostles must sanctify themselves in the apostolate, and by means of it, to sanctify yourselves in view of and by means of the apostolate. These should be the marching orders of a diocesan priest. We would be giving the lie to the Church, to the life of Jesus, and to the lives of all the saints, if we said that the exterior apostolate is incompatible with personal sanctity. These words spoken by the servant of God, Don Pope, to priest, are equally true for all apostles, cleric or lay, religious or secular. Every apostle should be convinced that precisely in his own field of labor and nowhere else will he find all the graces necessary to sanctify himself, to attain intimate union with God. When a person gives himself to the apostolate, not by his choice, nor because of a natural attraction for activity, but solely in answer to a call from God. He can be certain that since God has willed him to engage in the apostolate, and as he also willed him to be a saint, that the apostolate will provide him with the means to become one. God cannot condemn his mediocrity. God cannot condemn to mediocrity one who, in order to do his will, and out of love for him, is burdened with apostolic labors and responsibilities. No, brethren, Don Poppe continues, the active life is not a night in which the light of the ideal is extinguished. If so many apostles have lost their light, you should not lose confidence, but humble yourselves profoundly because of your weakness, and then more abundant grace will surely bring you success. Do you not know that difficulties and obstacles are sometimes transformed into helps under the wonderful action of grace, and may contribute greatly to good? Certitur sum, you can say with St. Paul, I am certain that no creature in the world has power to draw me away from the road to sanctity. In the measure that an apostle is docile and faithful to grace, God will purify him, refine him, and sanctify him precisely by means of his apostolic labors. Number 2. The conviction that we can sanctify ourselves in the midst of our work does not prevent us from having that silent longing for recollection, that desire for solitude and intimacy with God which often accompanies an apostle in his activities, becoming so keen at times that it casts a veil of nostalgia over his life. Anyone who has tasted, even in a slight degree, the infinite beauty and goodness of God cannot fail to experience an overwhelming longing and need for him. This is a good sign. It means that the apostle has not permitted himself to be pervaded and distracted by exterior occupations, and that, although living in the world, he is not of the world, but really tends towards God. Even if this longing should at times become painful, the apostle must not be disturbed, nor believe that he has mistaken his way. This pain will purify him and lead him to God. Moreover, he should not think that the mere desire for deeper recollection and union with God necessarily indicates a call to the contemplative life, which is characterized especially by the need of radical dedication and self-immolation. An insistent call to a deeper interior life should be considered rather as a grace given to protect the apostle against the dangers of the exterior life. It is the bulwark, the enclosure wall of his spiritual life. However, the desire for God should be satisfied. In addition to the daily hours of prayer and silence, The apostle must have sufficient pauses in his work. Monthly and yearly retreats are indispensable, and even more leisure for recollection must be taken after periods of intense activity. It would be a fatal error to allow oneself to become so absorbed in work that time could no longer be found for concentration on God in intimate heart-to-heart conversation with Him. Not even from the standpoint of greater generosity should an apostle renounce his hours of prayer, but at the same time he must go to his work calmly and confidently, ever mindful of the fact that until he has attained to full maturity in the spiritual life, he will not be able to escape the conflict between action and contemplation, action which tries to draw him away from contemplation, and contemplation which would like to prolong itself beyond the appointed time. He must make every effort to maintain an equilibrium, avoiding both extremes, and unifying his life by means of love before the conflict is settled. In perfect harmony, a long run must be traversed where it is absolutely necessary to give oneself to activity with great prudence, and to be very faithful to prayer, being careful not to allow the time allotted for it to be encroached upon. Here is the colloquy. O my God, how few saintly apostles there are! How rare are your real friends! O Lord, I am on fire with longing for the coming of your kingdom in the souls of apostles. I am on fire, but I am so poor that I shall be consumed before this kingdom comes. O Lord, make me a holy apostle, because a saint can accomplish more with one word than an ordinary worker can with a whole series of speeches. Without sanctity, I am like sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal, and you, O God, speak only through the mouths of the saints. Give me sanctity then, as it alone can enlighten minds, move hearts and renew them. O my God, do not permit me to deal in tinsel, nor be an empty vessel. It is hard to sanctify oneself in the apostolate. There are many obstacles and dangers to be encountered. Shall I then retire in discouragement? No, my God, because if my will is good, I shall always be aided by your grace. And where there is grace, the way which leads to the end, to sanctity, will always be found. Then what have I to fear? Your grace is with me. You yourself are with me and in me. And if you, O God, enter the battle with me, what can I call an obstacle? Would it be tribulation, sorrow, hunger? Or nakedness, danger, persecution, or the sword? I shall overcome all these difficulties with your help, for you love me and will not abandon me. Leaning on you, O Lord, I am certain that nothing in the world has the power to separate me from the way of sanctity. I am certain because you want apostles to be saints, because you are infinitely good, infinitely powerful and faithful to your promises, and because you are infinitely merciful. Don Pope. Thank you for listening. To support me further, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and God bless. Thank you.